Bam, guys. We are live. I'm going to apologize in advance if the audio video quality from my end is a little lower than normal. Our internet is out at home right now, so I'm hooked up to my phone hotspot on my computer, running through StreamYard live right now. So we'll see. We're going to give it the best shot we've got. We're going to give you guys about 20 minutes here, 15 or 20 minutes of a quick recap of the it feels like every one of these big press conferences the Cowboys have right now is just like a debacle, just a disaster. It feels like they come completely unprepared for the questions that get asked. And poor Mike McCarthy just sits over to the side, twiddling his thumbs for 20 minutes and gets two questions and then leaves. Like, what are your main takeaways from the press conference that we just witnessed?
I mean, there's a whole lot of nonsense, a whole lot of like double speak, a whole lot of just the same old about the contract stuff. But what I found kind of interesting is on the one of two questions, one question by our friend No C, Patrick Walker, which was, I think, a pretty good question about the running back rotation. And McCarthy talked about using a little bit more two-back sets this season. Maybe we'll see a little bit more 20, 21, 22 personnel even in the Cowboys offense. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. I'm more of like a 11 personnel guy, get more receivers, get more speed on the field type of thing. But I do think that there's some interesting things you can do like on occasion from two back sets and stuff, especially when you get down near the goal line, short yardage sets, all those type of things. So I found that kind of interesting. I was kind of disappointed that there weren't more football questions, I feel like after Jerry and Steven made it abundantly clear that they weren't going to really give us anything new on the contract stuff, and they were just going to keep talking the same thing about ambiguity and, that they have three guys that need to get paid and all these other teams don't have to do the same things they've been spouting off since January. I wish that there would have been more of a transition to talk more about the actual football stuff, stuff that we're interested in about, but I guess we have the rest of training camp for that to go. It's not like they're doing much in practice today. It's just non-padded 7-on-7 stuff, so that'll come, but not much. It was like an hour long, over an hour long, not a whole lot, just a lot of
exactly. It's pretty tough to talk. Yeah, it's pretty tough to talk for a whole hour and say nothing, which is pretty much what happened. But yeah, they continue to spout this nonsense about a couple of things. One is that no other team is having to pay this many guys at once, including a quarterback. It's just not true. It's just flat out not true. The Eagles are paying their quarterback a lot of money. They just paid two wide receivers top of the market money. They paid left tackle money. The Lions paid their quarterback, their top wide receiver, and the best right tackle in the NFL, all within a 2 or 3 week span this offseason. Almost every team in the league at this point has 3 or 4 of these guys that they're paying a lot of money. Also, it is hilarious to me that Jerry Jones at the very beginning of the press conference says, well, you're going to have to help me with my math on something. And then turns around a few minutes later and says, I'm very good at math. I'm very good at putting this together. And then starts talking about Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, and CeeDee Lamb taking up 75% of the salary cap. Dak Prescott would have to make $90 million a year for them to come close to taking up 75% of the salary cap. It just isn't, and they would have to count for that much in any one particular year, which never actually happens. So again, they just continue to spit this nonsense out about these contracts. And we get a report that says, hey, they've had no material conversations with CeeDee Lamb's representatives about the contract a day before camp. And that that's from the agent putting that out the day before the press conference, because he knows the next day the Cowboys team is going to come out, and one of the things that they are going to say is, we've had really great discussions with them, we're working towards it, it takes time, all that kind of stuff. The fact of the matter is, they're not having these conversations because they think CeeDee Lamb should come and play the 5th year of his contract. And until CeeDee Lamb shows them, and they got asked the question about, hey, Zach didn't show up. You eventually paid him. Zeke didn't show up. You eventually paid him. Like, why don't you just pay these guys ahead of time so they show up? And then Jerry goes on a 15-minute answer about nothing, essentially. And about not always being able to get what he wants and not always being able to afford it, which is kind of interesting for a guy worth $10 billion.
Yeah. So 1982 or like
right. But like they just continue to mishandle these situations. And that's the flat out truth. And there are the way that the conversations, the press conferences have been structured under the new PR guy, there's a lot less room for follow-up questions from the same reporter. Like, Saad Youssef from The Athletic asks a really good question. He doesn't have the opportunity to turn around and follow that up immediately because I think his name is Todd. Todd, the PR guy's got the next question already queued up in a line instead of allowing him to ask a follow-up question. Now, that's probably PR 101 from the team side, to keep that stuff from happening, to keep them from really getting pressed. And it also speaks to, this is where we've been praising the Cowboys beat a lot over the last few weeks. This also comes to an opportunity for the beat to come together and work together to put together a string of questions that relate to one another close enough that really put these guys in position to have to give some sort of a real answer. Because Saad asked him, hey, other teams have to pay players too. And they managed to not wind up in the situation. They managed to not wind up with 3 guys going into essentially the last year of their contracts. Micah's got the option year. Okay. Teams don't wind up with the best wide receiver in the league and one of the best 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the league in contract years at the same time. They just don't, unless they are planning on not retaining one or more of those guys. Which leads me to my next point, which was Jerry making a whole lot of references to sometimes I don't get what I want because I can't afford it, while they're talking about the quarterback contract. And sometimes you come out on the better end, and the decisions you have to make because you didn't get what you ultimately wanted, you wind up in a better place. To me, that's them preparing the media and the fan base for Dak not to be a Dallas Cowboy next year. Do you have thoughts?
That would be, I hope not. I really hope not.
Yeah.
I hope it's just posturing, in this whole type of contract dance that they kind of do. It seems like every single time now they have a big name contract. I did think it was really funny and intriguing by John Machota right after Jerry Jones was talking about going all in and how the fact that everybody's on 1-year deals is all in because they might not be here again, blah, blah, blah. And that constitutes them being all in because they have to put it in all to 1 year. Then he goes, well, have you let yourself think about what it would be like with that, Dak? And he's like, I don't see that. Then it's like that kind of goes against what you're saying of all in. If you don't think he's actually going to be gone, then is it seriously all in? It doesn't really make sense. So I thought that was kind of really sneakily done by John Machota, a vet reporter question to kind of catch Jerry in his little double talk there. That was really
in his spin zone there. Yeah. Where the thing that they refuse to give up in these contract negotiations, and to a certain extent, you almost applaud them for never wanting to give up the last little bit of leverage that they have, right? But in these sort of contract negotiations, they don't really have any leverage with Dak Prescott, because it almost doesn't matter how well Dak Prescott plays this year. He will still be the best quarterback to hit true free agency since Tom Brady. And if you exclude Tom Brady because he was 40-something by the time he hit free agency, he will be the best quarterback to hit free agency in his prime ever. Maybe.
Yeah.
I can't think of one. I can't think of a Drew Brees, but he wasn't Dak. He wasn't as good as Dak. Yeah, he was coming off an injury. They had drafted a replacement already. He was kind of losing the job to Phillip Rivers anyway.
That's why the Dolphins didn't take him, is because they thought they thought his shoulder was
exactly.
beyond repair.
Exactly. So no, he did. And that's all the way back to what, 2004, 2005 when that happened? Yes. So you're talking about 20 years, and Dak Prescott will be the best quarterback Peyton Manning, again, not in his prime, super late in his career, super productive afterwards at Denver, but not nearly the same player he was. And he, again, coming off massive, neck fusion, just missed an entire season. Not sure. Nobody was sure what Peyton Manning was going to be when he came back. Mm-hmm. So he hits free agency. But Dak is like the best quarterback in his prime to hit free agency in the modern NFL era, I think is probably easily safe to say.
The guy who finished top 2 in MVP voting last year. Yeah. Top
yes.
2.
Mm-hmm. Has been the quarterback of a top 5 offense the last 5 years that he's been, something like that. Like several years in a row now. I don't have the numbers right in front of me because this is kind of a press conference thing, not a stats deal. But yeah, and Trevor may be right. A deal may get done by week 1. You're absolutely right. But here's what the Cowboys have done. The Cowboys have made it so that by waiting this long to do the deal, they've removed the ability to utilize the flexibility that comes from this contract for anything in this season where they claim we're all in on this season. We want Dak and CD and Micah and Mike McCarthy and all these guys to put everything they have into this season, but we are not going to put everything we have into this season. That's essentially what they've said. They did it with the way the free agency, the way the whole offseason went, basically. We're not putting anything into this season, but we want these guys to put everything into this season. And it's funny, Tim Cowlishaw is Tim Cowlishaw, right? He maybe asked the best question of the whole press conference. Is like, you guys have made 8 head coaching hires. You just finished talking about how everything is on the line for everybody in this organization, except for you and your son who sit up here on the stage every year, and the results haven't been there, and everybody else's jobs are at risk. But you two, the ultimate decision makers, your decisions you're not at risk.
Yeah. That was the most word salad answer Jerry's ever given at this press conference.
Exactly.
I honestly have no idea what he said. I listened to every word, and I don't know what any of it meant. It was just like a really long answer that made
nothing. Yeah, we've been listening to Jerry talk between the two of us for 25 years combined. Like we've heard a lot of Jerryisms, right?
Oh yeah,
we've heard a lot of it. But this is not the first tiny violin we've seen. This is not, all that kind of stuff. He went with a bug reference super early on. It wasn't circumcising a mosquito. It was something with a gnat. I don't remember what it was. But I have no idea what he said to that answer. I have no idea what he said to the question about the holdouts. I have no idea about where he was. And you're right. I don't think Jerry even knows what he's saying. Justin, it was pretty bad. It was pretty rough, for sure. I think you're right, Trevor. I think he forgot 2 questions. I think he got into an answer, forgot what they asked. Yes. Clarence, ask your question again. You asked a question. I'm going to answer your question for 30 minutes and expect for you to understand my answer. But your question was 45 seconds long, so I have no idea what you said.
Oh my God.
I have no idea what you. Yes, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yes, Alec. I think that. So this is a tough question for me. I don't know. I think you may be right that he may be the one that doesn't get done. Actually, I think there's a pretty decent chance Dak doesn't get done because Dak has all of the leverage in the entire world. Micah is stuck with the Cowboys, and Steven even said it, and this is kind of the attitude they have. He's got to be here 3 more years. He's all right. He'll be here 3 more years. We'll get it done in the next 3 years because he'll be 6-7 years into his career, and he'll be beat to death every year by December, and he'll kind of go, you know what? I need to get this money, and he'll take the deal because that's how they play these negotiations because they want to win every deal They don't want to win the deal, right?
And keep going. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to go on another tangent. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but for Micah especially, I love Micah personally. I have a good relationship with Micah. I think he's great. I think he's the second or top two at the worst pass rusher in the league with Myles Garrett. I think he's phenomenal. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that I haven't heard from people in and around the organization, talking about how maybe difficult Parsons could be and stuff like that. And, of course, I'm getting this secondhand, so I don't know. I'm not the one there. I'm not, I don't know how truth this may be. All my dealings with Micah, he's been great. Everything like that. But there are people in that organization for sure, I can say, that aren't the biggest fans of Micah and think that his presence is, even with all the positivity it brings a lot of negatives as well, and could not potentially set the best example for younger players and blah, blah, blah. I don't know how much I believe that myself, but I know there are people in that organization that for sure believe that. I would bring him back. I would sign him, but there is definitely a faction in that organization that does not want him to be back after all these fiasco, and especially if he's going to hold out and do all that, it's just going to embolden the stance that they already have. So I could see that coming to a hole for sure, but I wouldn't do it personally. Pass rushers don't go right. We've seen how difficult it was to replace DeMarcus Ware, and we had DeMarcus Lawrence, and then you're trying to find a number two and all of that situation, and you finally have your DeMarcus Ware is back, and you might. And
you're gonna there's the chance you let him go again.
Because he's going to continue to get better. He's been winning on, athleticism. He's been winning on, hustle. He's been winning on, just being more athletic, more speedy, more bendy than these offensive linemen. But every single year, he's made substantial strides in his technique. For somebody who gets, talked about how much he doesn't do football, he makes, unlike a lot of players, he makes substantial technical improvements at least every single year that he's been in the NFL thus far. And I don't see why that would stop now. It's not like he's a perfect technician as he is, but as he continues to become more and more and more of a technician, you're going to see his game become even stronger and stronger and stronger. And you're going to see his gravity only get bigger for the Cowboys defense and make everybody else's jobs easier. Everybody talks about that with Myles Garrett on the Cleveland Browns, how he's just a force multiplier for so many players on that defense. And I think Micah Parsons is on his way to becoming that kind of guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said. And the sentiment of the stuff within the organization, I've heard the same similar. We also heard the same thing coming out of Penn State right after when he was leaving school. He sat out the COVID year and opted out. And there was some folks talking that, we both heard the same thing because we heard it in the same place, that there were folks within the Penn State building that were, I think the word that was used was relieved or not disappointed or not upset when they found out that Micah decided to opt out that season, which for a player of his capacity going into would have been his junior season at a school that wants to win Big Ten titles and national championships, for that level of player to generate that response from people within the building, coaches and players, and not necessarily players, but coaches and other members of the building. And then now that we hear similar coming out of the Cowboys building, out of the Star. So again, I've never interacted with Micah personally, John. I know you have, but I have no reason to think negatively of him other than the fact that we've kind of heard these things come out. But again, these things could be coming out from a older, different generation who believes things should be done a certain way, and Micah believes things should be done another way. And there's just that generational clash that happens with young players sometimes that just have lived in a different world almost 100%. Than what their coaches, scouts, front office members have and do on a day-to-day basis. I don't know, Justin. I don't know about the podcast. I'm sure they don't love it, that he does that. But I don't know if it has much of a role in the way they feel at all about him and all that kind of stuff. But
it's not the fact that he has the podcast, it's some of the comments that he's made on the podcast. And they're not things that are like what everybody has harped on. Those aren't the things that are Cowboys on. They're just kind of little sneak shots, I would say, that unless you're around the team and know the kind of like factions within the locker room, you wouldn't really notice what's going on. But the people that are around the locker room pick up on those things. And It has been an issue for some. But the fact that he has a podcast, like the fact that he takes like 3 hours out of his week to do a podcast, no one that I've talked to cares about that. If he talked on the podcast, fine, and he never said anything, that can be construed as negative, they wouldn't really care. It's the fact that there have been some comments that they would deem to be shots. If you are, like if you know the inner workings of the team in the locker room.
Yeah, and Trevor
pick up on really.
Yeah, and you would think so. You would think so, and it should be, but they also should have gotten more than a 5th round pick for Amari Cooper.
Oh, don't even do why? Don't even bring it up, man. Oh,
because this is how they run things. They do such a solid job of pushing negative press about their players that they're about to pay, that they push these guys down and make it so obvious that they're ready to move on from these guys, that when it comes time to pay the guy or trade the guy, you can't get what you want for him because everybody knows you don't want him anymore. Everybody knows you're going to cut him or let him walk, which it's all of it. It all goes together. They want to treat it like each individual player is a different negotiation, that each player, each contract rides in a silo. But then they want to blame each contract for the next contract not being done. Oh, well, we just had to pay Dak Prescott all this money. He's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. We can't pay Dak Prescott and this other person. And then they eventually wind up paying that person because that's what you do. And then the next, it just keeps going. Yeah, Justin, don't bring up the Amari Cooper trade, who just got a contract renegotiation, got some more money from Cleveland. Like, imagine that. And yes, Alec, the Rams offered 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. The Panthers didn't take that trade. And then when it became obvious they were ready to move on from Brian Burns, guess what? They got way less return for him. When they could have traded him before it became obvious they weren't going to re-sign him and gotten 2 first-round picks for him. That's the conversation that we're having. Is the difference between having the foresight to say, we're not going to pay in this conversation we're having. We're not going to pay Micah Parsons. So let's trade him this season for a massive haul for the next head coach, next quarterback to work with, or waiting until 3 seasons from now when he's played on a 5th-year option and is on his 2nd franchise tag and trying to trade him in. That's the difference that we're talking about. There's no foresight at all. Not a single solitary bit in these sorts of situations. And yeah, Kid Cowboy, the second highest MVP vote getter, the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in the league, the guy who's been the head of the number 1 offense in the league last year, the year before that, a couple of years before that, and has, essentially the franchise record holder in every meaningful passing metric in the league for the team. He's the problem. He needs to go. And yes, there have been some wasted years. They wasted 10 years with Jason Garrett as the head coach. They wasted some years with Monty Kiffin as the defense coordinator. Rest in peace. They wasted a bunch of years with quarterback purgatory before that until they lucked their way into Tony Romo. They have wasted plenty.
If you think the 9 years were wasted, wait till you don't have a QB. Then what are you going to call that? And Joey, I need you to take on the Dak haters. That has to be your territory, because I'm starting to get worn out from all the, I already slayed all the D-Law haters. I haven't
all
seen
the Tank Lawrence haters.
They're slayed, but then I've been taking on the Micah haters this offseason, and that's been fun. It's been very easy. But I need you to take Dak. I need you to take those Dak haters. Take them out.
The real answer is to go back and watch the offense whenever Cooper Rush was the quarterback. That's the real answer. Because if you exclude go watch the offense, really watch the offense. Now, again, you have to know what you're watching, which is kind of the problem with a lot of these situations. Go watch Cooper Rush play quarterback for this team and tell me that you want to go from one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And if you want to say Dak's not the most physically talented quarterback in the NFL, okay, fine, cool. He is unequivocally, undeniably one of the most productive quarterbacks in the NFL. It doesn't matter who the offensive line is, doesn't matter who the offensive line coach is, doesn't matter who the wide receivers have been. It doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. Dak Prescott has, for the last 6 years now, been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And yes, absolutely. I'm loving the chat, guys. This is awesome. If you did this with Romo, you did this with Dak, you went through all the stuff at the end of Aikman after Jimmy leaves, Aikman doesn't have a lot of success in the playoffs after that point. You go through quarterback purgatory, you come out on the other side with Tony Romo, then you luck yourself into back-to-back all-pro level, close to MVP level quarterbacks, back-to-back. You have, 20 years almost at this point of good quarterback play without spending anything to acquire it. And these are the results. Oh, yes, it's absolutely the quarterback's problem. It's 100% Dak Prescott's fault that the Cowboys have not been good. So,
got him.
Again, you're absolutely right, kid. You're absolutely right. He couldn't stop Brock Purdy. He couldn't love. And so, of course. Yes, you're 100% out. Guys, I love the chat. It's a little later than normal. We're not on lunch hour. I've got to get back to work. I'm sure John's got to get back to work. But we are here on this channel live every Tuesday and Thursday. We'll be here all throughout the season. We're going to grind tape. We're going to look at stats. We're going to do all this kind of stuff. This has been a blast.
I'll be at
camp August next Tuesday. John's going to be at camp like 10 days from now. You're not going to get coverage anywhere like you're going to get here. We've talked about that a lot. Silver Moon Financial. It's my company. If you're a business owner and you suck at accounting, we can help you. John, he's the man. I'm Joey. We got to hop because we got work and stuff to do. But thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Come join us. We will be back. And I hope you are too. We will see you on Tuesday when we'll have real life football stuff to talk about, like a whole few days worth of football stuff to talk about. We will see you then. Thanks, guys.